Welcome to the Industry Iowa podcast, powered by CIRIS, the Center for Industrial Research and Service at Iowa State University. This is the show where we explore the people, partnerships, and the practical strategies driving Iowa industry forward. Whether you're a manufacturer, innovator, or community leader, you'll find real-world insights to strengthen your business and your region. As promised, we have back with us today for part two, Mark Stanley and Angela Kalemis, co-authors, along with Mark O'Donnell, on a great book. And I'm going to let them talk just a little bit about that again, introducing the book, the title, et cetera there. But Mark and Angela, would you again, just by chance, if there's an audience, folks that have not listened to part two, go ahead and just do a brief introduction of yourself. Angela, would you start us off?
Sure. So been an EOS implementer for 6 years now, have worked with more than 75 different companies, 600 sessions, happen to have an engineering background, worked in consulting for a very long time. The book is all about, the title is called Data, Harness Your Numbers to Go from Uncertain to Unstoppable. And it's a book just designed to take the overwhelm out of like this concept of feeling uncertain, feeling like you're flying blind, not knowing how your business is doing, the overwhelm of understanding like different numbers and the way your business makes money, taking that overwhelm out of it, trying to take a dry subject and make it a little bit more interesting, a little bit more practical. So with that in mind, it's just packed with stories and templates and tools and some things that right off the bat can give you some quick wins of how to remove that uncertainty and provide more clarity and control in a business. Mark, did I miss anything?
Just great introduction.
And yourself, Mark?
Yes, thank you, Steve. So Mark Stanley, I've been an EOS implementer since 2009, 1,600 session days, over 100 clients working through EOS. And I've probably been a business owner a number of times, and I understand the power of data in my own businesses. But also, so sometimes I feel like I sit in the seat of the entrepreneur who's trying to has a vision, trying to get something done on a pathway going forward, and how important that data is. So, one of the things I was excited about in being a part of this project was we started to package up, as Angela said, some simple, practical stories and tools and templates and just real world, real action driving, practical tools in the book, right? And so this is something that an entrepreneur can pick up, take a look at, and go from that kind of that entrepreneurial run by the seat of your pants, gut feel to become more of a data-driven leader. And that's kind of our passion in the world.
Mark, again, episode one, a little bit of an introduction to EOS, but very briefly, what is EOS?
EOS is the Entrepreneurial Operating System. It's based on the book Traction, written by Gino Wickman. It goes back to 2007. And what it is there are 6 components in the model that every entrepreneurial business needs to learn and address. One of those things is vision, making sure we're crystal clear on where we're going and how we're going to get there. The second component is people, and that's really making sure we've got the right people in the right seats, whether you have 4 people, 40 people, 400 people, or 4,000 people. Another component is the process component. That's where efficiency, effectiveness, scalability, and ultimately profitability lives. There's the traction component, which is bringing it down to the ground. We've got a practical set of tools and a pulse each week and each quarter and annually on how you're operating the business. There's an issues component, which is driving the issues that you're addressing down to the root cause through identify, discuss, and solve methodology. And the last component is the data component. And the data component is really around the scorecard, giving you the pulse of how the business is operating and making sure all your high performers and all the people in your business have and know what their number is. And so this holistic model is all interconnected. And for us, having the opportunity to write the data book is, back to Traction, which was in 2007. You roll it forward. Traction book was 200 some pages. 15 of those pages were on the data component, right? So data component in part, and this is one of the Mastery Series books, gets blown out to 172 pages. So it's just a deep dive. And this is third in the series of the Mastery. series. So there's process was out first, then people, then data. Next year in April 2026, issues will come out, and then traction after that, then eventually vision, or vision then traction is the order. So it's great to have a book in the part of the mastery series. So it's just giving you a deeper dive on this practical, real world, yeah. Listen, it's hard being in business, right? So you got to make things super simple. So this is a simple thing, the data book.
Yeah, excellent. Well, and again, folks can find it. What's the website that people can go to, Angela?
It's www.unstoppable-biz.com.
And individuals can also not only order the book, but they can also get a free chapter. Is that correct? Chapter 1?
Absolutely. There's tools on there, there's templates, there's the free chapter of the data book, there's all of our upcoming workshop dates, and just a ton of useful information, including
Excellent.
a link to buy the book. Yep.
Including a link. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Well, let's get into part 2,
And
measurables. Yes.
The book is available as well on Amazon, and it's on Audible. So any place where you can get, there's an audio version of it too for those that like to drive and listen.
Yes. Yeah. And particularly here in the state of Iowa, right? Because they're going to hands-free and all of that July 1. So
Yeah.
Audiobook is going to be the way to go. So let's talk measurables, cash, and making it stick. And there's a particular, there's a specific chapter in the book that is titled Cash. How does that connect to data? I know that's a big question, but
Yeah.
Mark, how does that connect to data?
Angela, I can't help myself. And so in the data component of EOS, there's scorecard, measurable, and then another thing that's added in there is a cash flow driver. So there's 2 disciplines in that component. A cash flow drivers is in addition. So we used to be able to do, so when you're running EOS and you're working with an implementer, you get a leadership team manual. A cash flow drivers was one of the tools that you did in a quarterly session. And so for the first time, that cash flow drivers is in the public domain. But the title in the book is Cash because what we find is that the CFO is very financially literate. They're very fluent in the numbers. But we need everybody on the leadership team has to know how the business makes money. So one of the things that I do with my clients when I work with them is like, I just ask them a simple question. How does your business make money? Write your answer down, and then we're going to compare answers. And interestingly enough, if you've got 7 people in the room, you're going to have 7 very different answers. And so what the cash is about is understanding the lifeblood of the business. Cash is great when you've got plenty of it. Cash is the only thing you need to worry about when you're out of it. And so we wanted to have a chapter on financial literacy in a really simple way. So we have this thing called the 5-number income statement. The CFO can take the 2,000 lines that they like to do in the detail, but we need to boil it down into how does the business make money? That's revenue. How do they generate the profitability that they need? And that's gross profit. The OpEx is simply just what do you spend to operate the business every day? And then the bottom is the net income. And so those 5 numbers we teach, and I like to say that every business is a gross profit making machine. And so what you're in business to do in terms of financial standpoint is to make gross profit at a much faster rate than you're burning up the operating expense dollars. That's the cost to operate your business. So this super simple chapter talks about what break even looks like, what does 1% more gross profit mean to your business in just a real simple practical way. And when we tell the story of a candy store, which is easy, right? So I got a candy store, it's $4,000 to operate. I'm selling candy bars. How many candy bars do they need to sell to break even? And so just super practical tools for the entire leadership team to know in business. It's because if you can know those 5 numbers, that's as fluent as we need you to be. Just get you conversational in that. And so cash was an important chapter for that, creating some of that financial literacy.
Well, and I think it speaks to something that Angela, you spoke of in the first episode about them not feeling overwhelmed, right? And so if it can be winnowed down to, just as you're talking about, Mark, not as many elements and a better understanding of data and how it functions. But I assume there's still going to be mistakes made, right? There's still a lot of mistakes made. Angela, what would you see or say, are maybe some of those bigger mistakes that companies make as it relates to data?
Ooh, excellent question, Steve.
Yeah. I'm glad you got that question.
Yeah. Probably, I mean, several things that we see way too often, unfortunately, is sometimes they're just tracking way too much stuff, right? They're tracking so much stuff that there's so much noise and they're not getting the real signals, right? Because when your scorecard is right, it's a decision-making tool. It's not a reporting tool. And they're so bogged down by all the noise that they're not really getting the message. So they're either tracking too much stuff, maybe it's the wrong stuff. They think it's a reporting tool, not a decision-making tool. It doesn't give them predictive ability to know that, hey, the check engine light has gone off in my car and I need to dive a little deeper, right? And so helping them narrow it down to those 5 to 15 real true numbers that give them a true pulse, it's probably the biggest mistake. Maybe they're tracking stuff like it's not activity based, it's results. Like it's way too late in the process. So getting a little bit more predictive, getting some leading indicators, making them activity based. Those are probably the biggest ones.
Right, because again, as you focus on the inputs, Mark, you remember, of course, from the inputs, outputs, Lean Six Sigma, Y is a function of X. You function on those inputs, and unfortunately, I think what happens is I always use the example of, individuals not liking the process, not wanting the results of it. Say, they made a cake, didn't like the taste of it. Rather than changing the ingredients, they just stood outside the oven the second time screaming, better cake, better cake. And I think that's probably sometimes the same thing that it sounds like, right? Not necessarily changing their understanding, their utilization of the data, putting that in right, understanding it, where is it a leading, is it lagging, what's going on, but then having the expectation of different results.
Yeah. Well, oh, you took me back on that story. Better cake. Yeah, and I think another, challenge is, I believe that high performers want to know and need to know how they're measured. And leaders are actually doing them they're not helping them by not having everyone have a number. So I want to know, everybody wants to know, particularly high performers want to know what winning looks like and whether or not they're winning. And we actually give them a gift, leaders do, of giving them a number or talking about what their number is. And so then I imagine, if you go back to the time clock and used to punch out with your time clock and the light goes on above the time clock and that's your number at the end of the week. And it's either green or red. The high performers have the red number at the end of the week and they're obsessing about what they're going to do next week to make it green. Or even if they hit a green number, they're obsessing over the weekend about what I got to do to keep it green. And so we just, that's just an important part of morale, of everybody feeling satisfied that they know what winning is and they're able to contribute to something meaningful. And those numbers and then are tied to the bigger picture of the vision of what we're trying to do and our purpose, of course. But and it's not about, it's winning together as well in that. So it's just not I'm winning at the expense of others. But high performers want to know how they're measured. They need to know.
And that ties in with some of the work that I do with training within industry, job relations, right? Better relations equal better results. And one of the keys to having better relations with those that report to you, your direct reports or those that you're directing the work of, is setting expectations and letting people know where they fall. Right?
Yes.
If you don't do that, that chips away at the strength of that particular relationship. So sounds like it is. And Angela, you had mentioned it too before about just that cascading, right? You've got that overarching organizational goal, but how does that link down to the individual contributor? And do they know how what they do impacts that next level and next level and next level.
Such a huge challenge for clients, taking that link all the way down, seeing how data impacts the other key components in EOS, how they need to figure out if we're all winning, if we're all marching in the same direction. How do we even know we're making the right amount of progress? Like, it's a huge challenge.
Yeah. I think, Mark, you might have said it again, another throwback to that one thing, the one string,
Yeah.
right? That connects
tying the string
everybody
together
within the organization. In the book, you mentioned avoiding the street light effect, right? That tendency of businesses to focus on easily measurable data rather than what's truly important. How do you, what plans do you give? What tools, what ways can organizations and leaders avoid that?
Is that directed towards Mark?
Whoever wants to take it. Yeah. Okay, I guess I hit on one. Nobody wants to take it.
That's a hot potato, Steve. So in the book we talk about that the streetlight effect. And it's the drunkard's parable. So the person's looking for the keys under the streetlight, and the policeman comes over and taps him on the shoulder. Well, why are you looking for the keys? Where did you lose your keys? Well, I lost them in the park. Well, why are you looking for them here? Well, this is where the light is. And so sometimes we're measuring what's easy and what's convenient, or we think we need a system to measure, and we're not really understanding what's important in our business and what are we trying to drive. And one of my discoveries in writing the book and pulling together the workshop with the team is the getting what you want tool. Right. So you begin with the end in mind, and then you work it backwards. So if what you're looking for is 40 warm leads a week or a month, what you need then as you work back is 5 blog posts every week. Right. So to get 40 a month warm leads, I need 5 blog posts a week. So then you're starting to tie that together. Well, those are measurables that getting what you want tool helps you get. It begins with the end in mind and work backwards. So that way, we're not looking where the street light is for the keys. We're actually discovering where the keys are actually landed, and we can get there.
Right. It's all about helping people identify what truly are the human activities that get the results that we want. Right? That's ultimately what we want to measure. We don't just want to report out on like what's easier to report, as Mark was just saying, but how do we track and drive the human activities that get us the results that we want?
I think, and you mentioned again in episode 1 about can you poke a belly button, right? I mean, and I think truly, yeah, it does. It gets to the driver, that leading indicator that's going to tell me it's not just a result that we're measuring, but it's actually something again that can truly impact the outcome. So in there, as well as we're on the subject of scorecards, you've probably seen over time, and until the organization matures in EOS and their deployment and utilization of it, that they may go all over with their creation of their scorecard, right? Multiple iterations and things of that nature. But how do you make it stick? How do you drive that accountability so that it's not just a number, but how do you drive that accountability? And Mark, if you want to, I know. Okay, you're nodding your head. Yeah, let's go ahead and let you take it.
I was kind of hoping Angela would take that one.
I can take it.
Yeah, go ahead, Angela.
All right. So how do we get these scorecards to really stick? That's what you're talking about, right? The discipline of the scorecard and really using it so that it is a decision-making tool. So once we identify the real 5 to 15 key measurables, the ones that truly matter, and get rid of the noise, right? Because many times what we see is people are just tracking all these pieces of data. And when they're not that useful, they figure out what the piece of data is. And it's like most of the times, like if it's not really useful and it's not predictive, they just blow it off. It's just noise. And it's okay if like, oh, whatever, we didn't hit the goal. It's okay. It's just noise. But when they're really predictive and they're really the right numbers, we don't blow it off. It's that indicator light that goes on in your car that tells you you have to take action. You have to pop the hood and look a little deeper. And that's the discipline of when you have the right numbers, we truly use them to take action, to drive decisions, to have this feedback loop when we're looking at when the number is red and that indicator light goes off, let's take some action. Let's look, do we have a problem with our people? Do we have a problem with our process? Is someone not managing the resources well? Like, it tells us that we have a problem. We need to look deeper when you truly have them right. When you're measuring way too much, it's so easy to just blow them off.
Yeah, but Angela, we've always used that metric. We've always used that number. Why? Why not now?
Well, what kind of action have you taken out of it? Is it activity based? Is it predictive? Does it give you the result that you want? Like, are you taking any action, or are you just reporting? That's what I want to know.
Yeah. Or the old, and how's that been working out for you? Right.
Right. I didn't want to say that, but yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
what you find is sometimes the scorecard gets bloated because there are people issues. We don't have the right people in the right seat. And what we're doing is we're trying to mask it with a bunch of numbers on the scorecard that's hard to pin them down on, who's the human behind this number. Well, if a human's in charge of 5 or 6 different numbers and they're all off, is it a human issue, or is it a scorecard issue? And so sometimes we mask human right people, right seat issues with too many scorecard measures. But when we get really laser like, and what you said, all accountability starts with crystal clear expectations of what you need people to do. That's followed up by the crystal clear expectations. Here's the number we need you to hit every week, because when we hit those numbers, we drive these results that get us closer to our vision and get more of what we want in our business. So we can draw that thread all the way through, from vision to action. But sometimes the scorecard gets bloated because we're masking people issues at the heart.
You appreciate the segue there. You spoke about vision and that. How does data tie in? I know there's an element to all 6 of the components there, but how does data specifically tie into the vision? Who'd like to take that one?
Well, specifically, in EOS, we have a thing called the Vision Traction Organizer, but there's many versions of kind of a one-pager. And in that Vision Traction Organizer, we have a 3-year picture that has financials, measurables, and what does it look like? Goes to the 1 year, financials, measurables, goals, goes to the quarter, financials, measurables, rocks. And so between the 3-year to the 1 year to the quarter to the weekly, we would like to draw a thread through there, a string, if you will. So how do we make more revenue? If that's the why, you mentioned that earlier, then what's my input to that? It might be more revenues driven by more sales calls. Then that why, that sales calls is a output of what input? Well, it might be the number of blog posts that we have. Well, what's the output for that input? Is the number of blog posts. Might be the ability to create content that's compelling. So compelling content leads to better blog posts, leads to more sales, which leads to more revenue. So now we're tying it down from vision, what we're trying to achieve, down to activity, somebody doing something, and then can see a clear line of sight. So the more we can tie, so if you get really philosophical for a minute, what EOS is, it's an energy management system. It harnesses human energy towards some point in the future, and data helps us keep score of how we're tracking towards that really great vision. And without the data, you can get off course really quickly. And the more we can harness that human energy, the more the easier it is, the less friction it is, the funner it is, because we're not dealing with things that are off. Because even if you're off a degree or two, if my sprocket and chain are off a degree or two, there's just friction in the chain, right?
Right. I would assume that you have organizations that are and leaders that are at different levels, even individuals within the leadership team. They're at different degrees of utilization of data, their desire for data. You're going to be on all kinds of the spectrum there. But then when we talk about culture? How do we build, what advice can you give for leaders that really want to create a data-informed culture, but without, becoming this just number only, numbers only type of organization, or becoming too rigid or bureaucratic? Angela, can you speak to that?
I would say the culture really has to be this mindset shift where people are embracing the discipline of the scorecard. And what I mean by that is, instead of it being just like this micromanagement kind of reporting tool, it being, we set the expectation and we owe it to every employee in our organization to set the expectation and to tell them what success looks like, to define that success, to let them know if they're winning, because we all like to win, right? So taking that micromanagement out of it, and we have the responsibility to all of our employees to define success, committing to that.
And one of the stories in there that Angela came with for the book was the story of the high-vac company that had 5 people out selling. They had a proven process, and the proven process was designed to deliver $1,000 sale on average per week. And you've got the scorecard for all 5 of your salespeople. And at some point, 2 of them fell off of the 1,000. They were coming in at 700 and 800. And then you didn't have to micromanage them. You just knew that they weren't following the proven process. So I don't have to chase them around with a clipboard. As Angela likes to say, you let the tool do the work.
That's right.
Yeah, and again, it's just consistency, utilization of that, and always coming back to that. And I would assume that's the important thing as well. Just consistently using these and pointing individuals to it. Yeah, Mark.
And let's talk about a little bit like a culture of high performance, right? And so A players, high performers want to work with other A players, high performers, right? An A player will never work for a C player, not long. And a C player only attracts other C players. And so what happens then is if you allow the numbers to slip and you're not crystal clear in your expectations of what you need people to do, the highest performers leave, and then you're left with the lowest performers in mediocrity. And for me, a high performer, I want to be crystal clear. A high performer for me is someone that's reliable and consistent. In one of the businesses I owned, I had a guy, Bob. Bob came in and he punched 200 parts in the morning off the press, 200 in the afternoon. You say, Bob, hey, we only need 300 parts today. You know how many you're getting? 400. Hey, Bob, we're a little behind. Can you do 500 a day? Yep, you're only getting 400. So, but I love Bob, and Bob for me was a high performer because every day he showed up. He was good at what he did. He did high quality work. He was consistent with its output, and so I'm not thinking like superstar as a high performer. I'm thinking high performer. They're just consistent in meeting their expectations day in and day out. And I take 9 in 10 Bobs in my company, and have the one that's really driving the business, and that's typically the visionary or an integrator that's driving the business towards its vision. So drive it forward. But so again, that's a culture of high performance, right? Requires you to have data and measurables.
As it's been mentioned many times, there's so much more about data and stuff that you could share that it cannot fit into the book. So again, want to encourage people to go out to the website, and we'll make sure that it is linked on any of the podcast posts. A couple of things before we wrap up here with episode 2. The September workshop. Where is it? Where can they find out information about it?
So on our website, unstoppable-biz.com, we have all of our workshops. We're actually doing 10 in the fall. We have Phoenix, Minneapolis, Toronto, Dallas, Philadelphia, all over the country, Charlotte, Miami. We're doing them between September and November. So we have about 10 different dates, 10 different cities. We're making this movement to help a lot of businesses and entrepreneurs really go from uncertain to unstoppable. And so if anyone can take just one action from this book, I would say it's take the time to read the book. There's a bunch of reflection questions that are all designed to get you thinking about how to strengthen data, whether it's revising your scorecard to make it better, whether it's getting better net measurables, whether it's using the getting what you want tool to make them more predictive and action oriented, or just driving more cash and getting more accountable to the actions that drive that cash. Use the reflection questions in the book and either reflect on your own and make your data stronger, work with your EOS implementer, reach out to us. We'd be happy to help. Attend one of our workshops, but just take the time to reflect to figure out how you can strengthen your data.
And that was my final question there, or final comment there. So Mark, it's up to you. If someone just took one action from the book, what should it be? And you can't say, ditto to what Angela said.
She said it so well. What I like about the book is the way that it's organized, right? And so read the book or listen to the book, because if you do go through chapter, the first is the mindset and understanding, there's reflection questions, and there's a story on each chapter, right? So here's the lesson, here's the real life story, here's the reflection questions. Each chapter is built that way. And then at the end, there are seven tools. So there's a clarity break page back there. So if I want to take a clarity break on data, here's some questions. There's a how is my mindset little assessment that you can take to help you get better at things. And so it's just jam-packed with tools. If you work through the book and you use it as kind of a handbook and a workbook itself, you're going to get a lot out of it. So my practical advice is read the book.
Read the book. All right, Angela.
Actually,
closing arguments, Angela.
I would say after you read the book, commit to taking action from it, and whatever that action needs to be for your business, but commit to taking the action, because that's really what we're trying to get you to do.
Okay, and how can individuals connect with you individually? What's the best way?
So I would say either email, or you can visit our website. Again, it's unstoppable-biz.com. On the website, you can send us an inquiry. It has our contact information all on there. We'd be so happy to help anyone that really needs help here.
Okay, excellent. Well, again, Mark, Angela, thank you so much for being on Industry Iowa.
Thank you, Steve.
It's just been a delight, and I know we could go on and talk much longer. And so I encourage listeners, viewers to check out the website, and it sounds like there's a lot of workshops, various parts of the country. So really no excuse for someone not being able to attend. So thanks again for being a guest. National tour. You need to have T-shirts there, Stanley.
Yeah, we're gonna have all the series on the back. The North American tour. We have all the locations. We have to include Toronto, so it's the North American tour.
There we go. Well, hey, thanks again, everyone, for listening to Industry Iowa Podcast, a podcast of CIRIS, the Center for Industrial Research and Service. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Steve. It was a pleasure getting to know you.
Thank you, Steve. Well done. Better cake.
Better cake.
I love that. All right. Bye-bye, guys.
Bye.
All right. Hey.